The Forsaken Alliance, the star maps of the outer galaxy, no longer showed Nethys Prime, not because the planet had been destroyed, but because the Galactic Commerce Federation had simply erased it from existence. What use was a world that could no longer trade, could no longer contribute to the endless flow of credits that kept the galaxy's economy spinning like a vast machine of greed? Elder Vorthok pressed his weathered hand against the cold metal of the observation deck window, watching another transport ship fail to start. The Kethrins had once been the galaxy's greatest merchants and diplomats, their elegant ships carrying precious goods between 1,000 worlds. Their homeworld of Nethys Prime had been a hub of interstellar commerce, its floating cities gleaming like jewels in the light of twin suns. That was before the Void Plague. The disease had come from deep space, carried by a derelict ship that drifted into Kethron space. It didn't kill people, but it killed technology. Any advanced electronics exposed to the plague would simply stop working, their circuits turning to useless metal in hours. The Kethrins had quarantined themselves immediately, hoping to contain the spread, but the Federation's response had been swift and merciless. Containment protocol activated, the Federation had announced. All trade with Nethys Prime is suspended indefinitely. Any vessel attempting to leave the quarantine zone will be destroyed. The Kethrins had begged for help, for research assistance, for anything. They had been loyal Federation members for over 3 centuries, had helped establish trade routes that made dozens of worlds wealthy. But when they needed help most, the galaxy had turned its back on them. That was 15 years ago. Turned away from the window as his aide, a younger Kethrin named Zilith approached with the daily reports. The news was always the same. More systems failing, more people leaving the cities to farm in the countryside, more children who would never see the stars their ancestors had sailed between like cosmic voyagers. Elder Zilith said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of years of disappointment. The long-range communications array is failing again. We have perhaps a day before it goes completely dark. Vorthok nodded slowly. The Kethrins were tall, graceful beings with pale blue skin and large, dark eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. Their hands were long and delicate, perfect for the intricate work of diplomacy and trade negotiations. Now those same hands struggled to maintain dying machinery with improvised repairs. "Keep the distress beacon active as long as possible," he said. "Someone out there must remember us." But deep in his heart, Vorthok knew no one was coming. The galaxy had moved on, found new trade partners, new routes that didn't require dealing with a plague-infected world. The Kethrins had become a ghost story, a cautionary tale about what happened when you lost your usefulness to the great machine of galactic commerce. 3 sectors away, Captain Sarah Chen was having a very different kind of problem. The human exploration vessel Resilience had been mapping the Outer Rim territories for 8 months, charting new routes for Earth's expanding influence. Humanity was still relatively new to the galactic scene, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years earlier. But they were making their mark with characteristic determination and curiosity. Captain, called Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez. From the communications station, "I'm picking up something strange. It's an automated distress signal, but it's using an old Federation frequency that's been discontinued for over a decade." Chen was a compact woman in her 40s, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. She had earned her position through years of service in Earth's growing space fleet, known for her ability to make difficult decisions under pressure and her unwillingness to abandon anyone in need. "Put it on speakers," she ordered. The bridge of the Resilience filled with a haunting sound, a mixture of electronic tones and what sounded almost like singing. The universal translator struggled with the signal for a moment before producing words. This is Nethi's Prime, calling any vessel in range. We are Kethrin, survivors in need of assistance. Our world is dying, and we have been forgotten by the galaxy. Please, if anyone remembers the old alliances, we need help. This message repeats every standard hour. The bridge fell silent. Chun's science officer, Dr. Elena Vasquez, was already pulling up star charts on her console. Captain, I've found references to Nethi's Prime in the historical databases. It was a major trade hub in the Federation, but all records stop abruptly 15 years ago. There's a notation about a quarantine, but no follow-up reports. Chen studied the data flowing across her screen. The Kethrins had once been powerful, respected members of the galactic community. Their diplomatic corps had negotiated some of the most important peace treaties in Federation history. What could have happened to reduce them to sending desperate pleas into the void? Set course for the signal's origin, she ordered. Maximum sustainable speed. Her first officer, Commander James Park, raised an eyebrow. Captain, we don't have authorization to deviate from our mapping mission. And if there's a quarantine zone? Chen turned to face him, her expression firm but not unkind. Commander, humanity spent centuries exploring our own oceans and continents. We found lost civilizations, helped stranded travelers, rescued people who everyone else had given up on. That didn't change when we reached the stars. The Resilience changed course, its powerful engines carrying it toward a world that the galaxy had forgotten. As they traveled, Dr. Vasquez compiled everything she could find about the Kethrins and their mysterious disappearance from galactic society. The picture that emerged was troubling. The Void Plague had indeed been real and devastating. But the more she read, the more suspicious the Federation's response seemed. The quarantine had been imposed not to help the Kethrins contain the plague, but to prevent any economic disruption to other Federation members. When the Kethrins' usefulness ended, so did the galaxy's concern for their welfare. It's not right, Dr. Vasquez muttered as she worked. They were abandoned, pure and simple. 2 days later, the Resilience dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Nethi's system. What they saw broke their hearts. The planet below was still beautiful, with its floating cities and gleaming ocean surfaces, but it was clearly dying. Many of the cities had gone dark, and the orbital platforms that had once buzzed with commercial traffic hung empty and silent. Captain Rodriguez reported, I'm getting a response to our approach. They're asking for our identification and... Wow, they sound surprised that anyone answered. Chen took a deep breath. Open a channel. Let's see what we can do to help. The main screen flickered to life, showing the image of Elder Vorthok in what appeared to be a command center. Behind him, other Kethrins moved with quiet efficiency, but Chen could see the hope and fear warring in their large, dark eyes. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Resilience, she said formally. We received your distress signal and have come to offer assistance. Vorthok stared at the screen for a long moment, as if he couldn't quite believe what he was seeing. Captain Chen, he said finally, his voice carrying the musical quality typical of Kethrin speech. I am Elder Vorthok of the Kethron Council. We... We have not seen a Federation vessel in 15 years. Are you here to lift the quarantine? Chen felt a knot form in her stomach. Elder Vorthok, we are not a Federation vessel. We represent Earth and humanity. We're here because we heard your call for help, and we don't abandon people who need assistance. The silence that followed seemed to stretch across the void between their ships. When Vorthok spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "You came for us," he whispered. "After all these years, someone actually came." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward at her station. "Elder Vorthok, we've studied what records we could find about the Void Plague. Our medical teams might be able to help. We have some experience with technological viruses from our own early space exploration days." Vorthok's aide, Zilith, appeared beside him on the screen. "Elder, this could be our chance. Their ship's systems seem unaffected by proximity to our world." Chen made her decision quickly, the way she always did when lives were at stake. "Elder Vorthok, we formally request permission to enter your system and offer whatever aid we can provide. We understand there may be risks, but humanity has never been deterred by the possibility of danger when people need help." The old Catherine leader straightened, and for a moment Chen could see the proud diplomat he had once been. "Permission granted, Captain Chen. Welcome to Nethys Prime. Be warned, however, that by helping us, you may be making enemies of those who chose to forget us." As the resilience descended toward the plague-locked world, Chen couldn't help but smile grimly. "Elder, humanity has never been particularly concerned about making enemies of those who abandon their friends. We'll face whatever comes." The first shuttles launched toward Nethys Prime an hour later, carrying medical teams, engineers, and supplies. But more importantly, they carried something the Kethrans hadn't seen in 15 years. Proof that someone in the galaxy still believed in honor, loyalty, and the simple idea that no one should face their darkest hour alone. Unknown to them, automated monitoring stations throughout Federation space had already detected the Resilience's presence in the quarantine zone. Deep in the Federation's sprawling bureaucracy, alarms were beginning to sound. The humans had just made their first major political mistake in galactic society. They had chosen compassion over profit. The consequences would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy, but Captain Chen and her crew didn't know that yet. They were too busy proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their military might. It was their refusal to abandon those the rest of the galaxy had forgotten. Elder Vorthok watched the human shuttles descend through his world's atmosphere like falling stars, bringing hope to a world that had lived in darkness for far too long. For the first time in 15 years, he allowed himself to believe that perhaps the Kethrans might see the stars again. The galaxy had abandoned them, but humanity had not. When outcasts unite, the Federation response came faster than anyone expected. 3 days after the Resilience had begun providing aid to Nethys Prime, Captain Chen received an priority communication that made her blood run cold. The message bore the official seal of the Galactic Commerce Federation High Command, transmitted through the most powerful relay stations in known space to ensure it reached every corner of the galaxy. To all vessels and governments, the quarantine zone around Nethys Prime remains in full effect. Any unauthorized presence in the system constitutes a violation of Federation health and safety protocols. The vessel Resilience, registered to the planet Earth, has been ordered to withdraw immediately and report to the nearest Federation station for decontamination and legal processing. Commander Park read the message with growing concern. "Captain, they're not just ordering us to leave. They're demanding we submit to Federation custody. This is essentially a declaration that we're criminals for helping the Kethrans." Chen stared at the communication screen, her jaw set in determination. Around the bridge, her crew awaited her decision. Below, on Nethys Prime, Dr. Vasquez and her medical team had already made breakthrough progress in understanding the Void Plague. It wasn't a disease at all, but a sophisticated piece of sabotage, designed to make Kethron technology appear infected while leaving Federation systems untouched. Captain, Dr. Vasquez's voice crackled through the cum from the planet's surface. You need to see this. The plague isn't natural. Someone deliberately infected Kethron systems with a targeted virus that only affects their specific technology configurations. This was an assassination, Captain. They were murdered economically. The bridge fell silent. The implications were staggering. The Federation hadn't just abandoned the Kethrons during a crisis. They had created the crisis to eliminate a competitor in galactic trade. Elder Vorthok appeared on the secondary screen, his expression grave. Captain Chen, we monitored the Federation transmission. You must leave now, before they send military forces. We cannot allow you to suffer for our sake. Chen stood up slowly, her mind racing through possibilities. Earth was still a minor power in galactic politics, with a small but growing fleet. The Federation controlled thousands of worlds, and maintained one of the largest military forces in known space. By any rational calculation, humanity should withdraw, apologize, and hope for leniency. But Captain Sarah Chen had not built her reputation on rational calculations. Elder Vorthok, she said firmly, humanity has a saying, you judge a person, not by how they treat their superiors, but by how they treat those who cannot help them in return. The Federation showed their true character when they abandoned you. Now it's time we showed ours. She turned to her communications officer, Lieutenant Rodriguez. Open a channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha encryption. The response came through after a 10-minute delay. Admiral Marcus Thompson appeared on screen, his weathered face serious. Behind him, Chen could see the bustling activity of Earth's primary military command center. Captain Chen, Admiral Thompson said without preamble, we've been monitoring the situation. The Federation has demanded we recall you immediately and hand over all data regarding the Kethrons. They're threatening to impose economic sanctions on Earth if we don't comply. Chen felt her heart sink, but Admiral Thompson wasn't finished. Told them, he continued with a slight smile, that humanity doesn't negotiate with people who commit genocide and then threaten us for discovering their crimes. Earth stands behind you, Captain. You have full authorization to render any aid necessary to the Kethron people. The relief that flooded through Chen was immediately replaced by concern. Admiral, the Federation has resources we can't match. If this escalates to military action, then we'll face it together, Thompson replied. Earth Command is dispatching the Third Fleet to your position. Admiral Harrison will take overall command, but you'll retain operational control of the relief mission. Captain, you've uncovered evidence of one of the most heinous crimes in galactic history. We won't abandon the Kethrons to cover it up. After the transmission ended, Chen turned to see Elder Vorthok staring at her with an expression of wonder. Your people, he said slowly, they are willing to risk war with the Federation for us. Elder, Chen replied, my people once fought a World War II, stop genocide. We lost 60 million lives in that conflict, but we never considered surrendering to evil. The scale may be different now, but the principle remains the same. Within hours, the first Federation patrol ships appeared at the edge of the Nethys system. The commander, a reptilian saurian named General Krex, demanded immediate surrender of all human vessels and the cessation of aid to the quarantined world. Chen's response was broadcast on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in the system could hear it. General Krex, this is Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Resilience. The quarantine of Nethys Prime was based on fabricated evidence designed to eliminate the Kethron people from galactic commerce. We have proof that the Void Plague was artificially created and deployed by Federation agents. We will not abandon innocent people to cover up war crimes. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute before Krex responded, his voice full of cold fury. Captain Chen, you are in violation of Federation law and are hereby ordered to surrender your vessel. Any resistance will be met with appropriate force. Understood, General, Chen replied calmly. However, you should know that Earth has dispatched additional ships to this system. Any attack on human or Kethron vessels will be considered an act of war. What followed was a tense standoff that lasted 3 days. Federation ships surrounded the system while human reinforcements raced through hyperspace. On Nethys Prime, joint human Kethron teams worked frantically to repair critical systems and restore the planet's defenses. The Kethrons, despite 15 years of isolation and decline, had not forgotten their expertise. Working alongside human engineers, they began modifying their ancient defense platforms with human technology, creating hybrid systems that neither side had seen before. Zilith, Elder Vorthak's aide, had proven to be a brilliant strategist despite her youth. Working with Commander Park, she developed battle plans that took advantage of the system's unique asteroid fields and gravitational anomalies. The Federation fights like merchants, she explained during a strategy meeting. They seek quick victories with minimal losses to preserve profit margins. But they've never faced humans in combat, and they've forgotten what Kethrons can do when we fight for our home. Admiral Harrison arrived with the Third Fleet just as General Krex lost patience with diplomacy. The Federation commander had been reinforced as well, and now commanded over 200 ships against Earth's 30 vessels and the handful of functional Kethron defense platforms. This is Admiral Patricia Harrison of the Earth Defense Force, came the transmission as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. General Krex, you were ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. Earth recognizes Nethys Prime as a sovereign world under our protection. Krex's response was to open fire. The Battle of Nethys Prime began with a massive Federation bombardment aimed at the human fleet. But Admiral Harrison had spent her career studying non-human tactical doctrines, and she had prepared for this moment. Instead of meeting the Federation fleet in open battle, the human ships scattered throughout the system, using the asteroid fields and gas clouds as cover. The Kethrons, meanwhile, activated defense systems that had been dormant for decades. Now upgraded with human technology and powered by portable fusion reactors. The first surprise came when Federation ships attempting to reach the planet found themselves caught in a web of gravitational mines, devices that used controlled singularities to tear ships apart. The technology was ancient Kethron science that human physicists had helped modify and deploy. The second surprise was the humans themselves. Earth's ships were smaller and less heavily armed than Federation vessels, but they fought with a ferocity and tactical brilliance that caught the enemy completely off guard. Human pilots used asteroid cover to launch surprise attacks, while human engineers aboard Kethron platforms coordinated devastating crossfire patterns. Captain Chen, commanding a mixed squadron of human and Kethron ships, led a daring assault on the Federation command vessel. The Resilience, supported by 2 restored Kethron cruisers, punched through the enemy formation using a tactic that had never been seen in galactic warfare. Ramming speed, at the last moment, the human ship pulled away, but not before launching every torpedo in its arsenal directly into the Federation flagship's engine section. The explosion could be seen from the planet's surface. General Krex, his command ship crippled and his fleet in disarray, found himself facing a transmission from Elder Vorthok himself. "General," the old Kethron said, with quiet dignity, "you came here to finish what you started 15 years ago. You sought to eliminate my people because we discovered your corruption, your illegal manipulation of trade routes, your exploitation of member worlds. But you made one mistake," Krex snarled. His reptilian features twisted with rage. "What mistake, old fool?" "You forgot that the universe is vast," Elder Vorthok replied, "and somewhere in it, there are always those who will stand against injustice. Today, humanity reminded the galaxy what honor means. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, over half the Federation fleet was destroyed or disabled. The remainder retreated, carrying with them the news that Earth and its new Kethran allies had won an impossible victory. But the real victory came in the days that followed. As word of the battle spread, something unprecedented began to happen. Worlds throughout Federation space started demanding investigations into the Kethron quarantine. Other species came forward with stories of similar manipulation and abandonment. Trade routes that had been controlled by the Federation for centuries were suddenly challenged. On Nethys Prime, the restoration continued with new urgency. The Void Plague virus was completely eliminated within a month, and Kethran technology began coming back online across the planet. The floating cities that had gone dark began to shine once more. Captain Chen stood with Elder Vorthok on the observation deck where they had first spoken, watching human and Kethron children playing together in the rebuilt gardens below. "Your people gave us back more than our technology," Vorthok said quietly. "You gave us back our hope, our faith that somewhere in this vast galaxy there are still those who believe in doing what's right rather than what's profitable." Chen smiled, but her expression remained serious. "Elder, this is just the beginning. The Federation won't forget this defeat, and they have resources we can barely imagine. The war that's coming will test both our peoples in ways we can't predict." "Then we'll face it together," Vorthok replied. "Humanity and the Kethrons, united not by trade agreements or political convenience, but by something far stronger, the belief that no one should face their darkest hour alone." As if to punctuate his words, a new signal appeared on the communication screens. It was a transmission from a distant world called Alteria, where another species had been isolated and abandoned by the Federation decades earlier. "This is the Altarian Republic," the message said. "We have heard of the alliance between Earth and the Kethrons. We request permission to join your cause. We too have scores to settle with those who rule through fear and greed." Chen and Vor exchanged glances, both understanding the magnitude of what was happening. Across the galaxy, the forgotten, the abandoned, and the oppressed were finally finding their voice. The Federation had created enemies by their own actions, and now those enemies had found each other. Humanity had come to help one isolated species, but in doing so, they had started something much larger. A revolution of compassion against a system built on exploitation. The galaxy would never be the same. As Captain Chen prepared to return to her ship for the journey back to Earth, Elder Vorthok pressed a small crystal device into her hand. "This contains the complete history of our people," he said. "Our achievements, our mistakes, our dreams for the future. It is given freely, with no expectation of return. Among the Catherines, this is how we forge bonds that can never be broken. Chen accepted the gift with the solemnity it deserved. Elder, among humans, we have a saying, "A friend in need is a friend indeed." The Catherines have proven themselves the truest friends humanity could ask for. The war with the Federation would be long and difficult. But as the Resilience departed Nethi's prime, its cargo holds filled with Kethron technology and its crew's hearts filled with new purpose, everyone aboard knew they were part of something historic. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy not as conquerors or merchants, but as the people who would never abandon those in need. The outcasts of the galaxy had found each other, and together they would write a new chapter in galactic history.